Hey everybody, welcome back to another Hearts of Iron 4 time lapse. Today I'm playing as Alexander Kerensky's Russia in Kaiserredux. Basically, he usually gets assassinated at the beginning, but you can have him stay alive, and then for the next few months you kind of have to keep him in power. And he's just barely hanging on by a thread. His Russia is a lot weaker than most normal Russias, at least for the beginning part of the game, usually because you're supposed to align with the supposed to align with the Germans, or at least, be friendly towards them. But and that's what I was trying to do this game, but it just wouldn't let me, which is a real shame. But after the first few months, I start building up, take care of the stands, which is usually, normal Russia stuff, you know. I don't know, a lot of stability issues for the first part of the game. You see it negative 35%, but you just kind of got to keep it going down these paths. If you are playing as this path, make sure to go for that far right side first and get rid of like the Savinkovas. That's like the best path if you want to keep Kerensky in power. If you don't keep him in power, he just gets kicked out. He plays like a democratic Russia, I think, and but just a lot weaker, and nobody really wants to do that. So, I went superior firepower again with Mountaineers. The usual for like doctrine and division templates. You also vote on bills and like the State Duma and stuff. That's a little mechanic they have for this part of the game. Kind of goes away later on. It kind of gets broken, but I don't know. Once you do get through this early harsh part where you have like the reparations, you have to pay reparations. Yeah, you get the Germans agree to investments, and that gives you like minus 30% consumer goods, which is pretty good. Just keep on going through the focus tree here. I think I choose the eternal president instead of like the liberal dictator. Just because I decided to go with the appease the Duma path. And then here, I think I'm having a conference with the Germans, I'm pretty sure. Or I'll do that in just a bit. They don't end up giving me everything I want, which is like Eastern Ukraine and Belarus. They only give me Eastern Ukraine. And I thought for a while that, when the French did attack, that I'd be able to join them, but that never really happened. So I had to go in on my own. Going down the doctrine right here, I'm just kind of building up the economy now. It kind of snowballs really quickly, at least, later on. Because for this first part of the game, really high consumer goods, and then you get super low consumer goods. And this was me trying to redo the wait, the conference, just because, I mean, it's really important to get what you want if you want to finish the German path, but sometimes that's just the way it is. Um, just still building up here. Just kind of waiting until the invasion starts of the Reichspakt. I do end up supporting the American the MacArthur administration over in America. That doesn't end up panning out, but And also they do give you a lot of decisions, a lot of like industrialization decisions. That's like a part of the whole reason they get really strong later on. They give you a ton of little decisions that each give you like a civilian factory, or really they upgrade the development of a province, which I feel like something that isn't focused on a lot in Hearts of Iron 4. It doesn't give you just more flat max factories in a state. Like it upgrades how many base amount of factories you can have in the state. So it goes like I think from all the way to rural to like metropolis or something, where you can get up from like anywhere from like two, with the rural, all the way up to like 25 total factories in a state with like the metropolis sort of development. And I think that's pretty cool. I think that's better than just giving like flat max factories in a state, or like flat plus civilian or military factory construction speed in an area, because I mean you get those bonuses a lot, and I don't really ever see that in normal vanilla, at least as much, which is like the increase of development a lot of the time. Um, but the second Weltkrieg starts here. I'm thinking, well, how am I able to join in here? I'm just trying to get rid of like the smaller minor powers in Central Asia still. They're pretty easy to take care of. And then here, I think I go with here I start thinking about like, oh well, I don't think I can, and I was like, well, at least I'll be able to get Eastern Ukraine and stuff if I do take the focus to reassert my claims, basically. I'm also really low on manpower here, just because I haven't gotten around to increasing the conscription law. Thankfully, you have a really large manpower pool as Russia, and I think I do eventually raise it up here. I've been able to keep Kerensky in power the whole time. There's like bills introduced in the Duma that do give you like some buffs, I think. But if you just make them fail on purpose, then it will decrease the party popularity of like other parties in the Duma, basically, and that just gives you more. And that's just kind of like a flat buff for a lot of things across the board. So you see me here cleaning up the Caucasus. I reasserted I took the focus to reassert Brest-Litovsk claims. Pretty easy, pretty good. A lot of these states are pretty small. And now I already have like a full army group. And I think pretty soon here I'll be able to put out like another good amount of troops as well. I'm just waiting for more to mobilize. I only have 500,000 free manpower, you know. Um, just to organize them all. Oh yeah, I get them out. I didn't realize I got them out so quickly. Also, they give you a lot of buffs to special forces in this and Kaiserredux. They're like pretty overpowered. I'd say like they're way cheaper than tanks, and like they might have like slightly worse stats than like tanks, but like there's just so many buffs to them that like you don't even need to think about it. And also there's a lot of like special forces capacity multipliers in the mod that just let you have like more special forces divisions than you have like normal divisions, which is pretty crazy. So yeah, here we go. War with the Reichspakt. But yeah, I try and start off with the White Ruthenians right here. Try and cut them in half and encircle a lot of the Ukrainian divisions. They do put up a good fight for a little bit. I had a lot of red bubbles like at the very beginning, but they just like run out of equipment because I started occupying a lot of their land. I think they lost a lot of entrenchment because I took the eastern Ukraine portion. They lost a lot of their forts. So I just start moving in here, moving through White Ruthenia, into the Baltic states as well. I forgot about Finland, I think, for a second. I had some divisions up there. They had like 0 divisions in Finland. It was pretty easy to take out. But the Austrians didn't intervene this time around. I don't know if it's because I was playing as Kerensky. It's a pretty old path. It's a very old path. So there were some things that weren't always in all of the Russia paths, but I still think it's pretty fun. Other than that, just, I don't know. The Ukrainians, you see all those red bubbles down there, they're holding out a lot better, but like I think I get an encirclement, I capitulate them around sometime here. I start deploying a lot of my air force at this point too. Just because, I don't usually start producing fighters until I get the improved model, really. Because I just don't see the point in getting the basic ones, just because they usually get taken out so quickly. This big encirclement coming up here is a pretty good encirclement. Actually, they were 2 little ones, but yeah, they capitulate. They don't even lose Kyiv and they capitulate, which is kind of crazy. But I keep on pushing in through here. I think they had already ground themselves up against like the Syndicalist and the 4th International, so it's just really easy to break through here. And like every time a country capitulates, there's always a good chance for an encirclement. Happened with White Ruthenia, happened with Ukraine, and that leads to just a lot of the German divisions getting encircled. They do kind of hold out for a little bit. I think I do have to slow down for a few seconds. It is like the middle of winter, but the second I get like my planning back up again, it's kind of over. Yeah, see, I try and make an encirclement here just to really break them, And that works out pretty well. You see a lot of events happen in the background for the Americans. And also, I totally forget about, like, Transumer. They never declare war on me. Maybe that's another part of this whole thing, that it doesn't really work the best all the time, this older path. But, that's just the way it is. But yeah, you see me keep on pushing here. About to push out the Germans. It's, they made pretty good headway, especially the Dutch all the way into the communards, but that doesn't really matter just because, I mean, I capitulated all the majors in the faction, so the Reichspakt just kind of collapsed at that point. Collapses. Um, what else is there to say, really? Over in America, I think it's a long war. It lasts all the way basically until the end of my game, like 1943 or 44 or something. I think the Pacific states win. They have an interesting little ideology. Um, you see me release all the countries here. I think I split up the Germans. Yeah, I split up the Germans into two smaller states. Just because, I like making the borders look nice, but also sometimes I like balkanizing a couple of the countries in a couple of small ways. I also split off like an East Prussia puppet. I don't know. It's just really nice that they have this mechanic in Kaiserreich and Kaiserredux where you can just release countries and you don't have to have all this border gore all the time. Oh yeah, and I did totally forget about oh, my game freezes here for a second. I did try the debug to try and fix the Duma thing. It kind of broke, but that's fine. I didn't want to pass most of the bills anyways. I forgot about the Afghans there, so I had to rush over there and conquer them real quick. You know, and that kind of does happen to me a lot. I really got to be more careful about what front lines I have. That happened to me last game as the Americans. The Mexicans just snuck in and caught me off guard, you know? Um, oh no, you see me, like, I thought there was an election mechanic coming up here, but it didn't really do nothing. It did increase my party popularity a lot, though, which is really a real boon. Because you see, I still have negative 24% stability. That's just never gonna go away, really. I capitulate the Austrians. No big deal, really. There's a lot of border gore over here. I will fix it, you know? Um, but yeah, I try and get my party popularity up. I try and get my war support up, but I don't think it really matters at this point. I already have 647 factories. I'm able to core all of these lands that I've conquered pretty easily. You see I've gotten pretty big Russia, you know? And it's only 1941. It's very early in the game. Sometimes the Germans, they just collapse immediately. Sometimes the war can go on forever. That's just the way it is. You see me start to invade the Ottomans here. I had like some sort of conference with them earlier in the game, but it doesn't really matter. I want Armenia back. I want all of my lands back, really. And I'm just going for a world conquest at this point. Your first goal, really, as Kerensky's Russia, is either to negotiate with Germany or to invade them. Basically, the secret path is kind of to join the Reichspakt. But that just didn't work out. And I said, I don't really know why it's not working, so I'll just go my own way, And it works out pretty well. It works out pretty well, Um, let me think here. I don't know, I'm able to capitulate the Ottomans. Sometimes there's just not always things you can talk about in a time lapse, And I think I'm gonna try and do more editing soon. I'll probably record, like in the game. But for me, it's just a lot easier to do the time lapse, I just do it for fun. I really enjoy playing Hearts 4. I hope you guys enjoy watching these time lapses, If anybody's really watching me, most of my videos only get like 20 views right now, but you know what? It's about the love of it, And if you don't like it, then what's the point of doing it at all, You see me? Yeah, I forgot that you have to go with. I didn't have to, but they declared war on me, the Mongolian Khanate, under that crazy guy, and he was probably tougher than the Germans. I did kind of just battle plan the whole way through there, but they get some pretty strong buffs to their cavalry, and I think that's pretty cool. I played as them a long time ago, and they get a lot of buffs to the cavalry, and it's really cool to play like a different version of the game, where you're not playing with like some sort of infantry special forces or like tanks or something. You're just playing with cavalry, So you have to avoid tanks, but you're also just faster than infantry, really. The Maltons, they were a real big pain in my butt for a lot of the playthrough. They did like just random naval invasions everywhere, and that got really annoying. So I just decided to go over there and invade them. Really, for whatever reason, the game wasn't giving me a decision to give up. Like the Chinese lands. I don't know why that was, but the Maltons were pretty easy to take out. You'd see me starting to build up just a lot of my puppets just because I have so many factories now, 924 factories, that I just don't know what to do with all of these factories, you know? Like, I don't have enough resources, I'm just gonna have to keep on trading for all these resources, you know? So sometimes, like, the snowball does come back to bite you, but it's just the way it is. You see me gearing up for war against Japan here. I was trying to get the nuclear reactor and all that stuff, but it didn't finish in time, I think. So that's fine. Uh, the Japanese, they're kind of a pushover. They're kind of always a pushover once you get them in like a land war. It's just the way it is. They get a lot of buffs to their navy, not to their army. So it's pretty easy pushing on through Manchuria and stuff and Korea. Um, I'm also gearing up for an invasion of the communites. And there, again, I forget about another front line over in Tibet. You can see it for a second. Yeah, I have to put more forces over there, really. But it doesn't really matter. As long as I can capitulate the Japanese, they're the only major in their faction. It all works out fine, really. Um, let's see here. Sometimes there's not always things you can commentate on, really. I get a good naval invasion off, pretty simple naval invasion. I just have a lot of stolen fleets from like the Germans and stuff, so I can always get naval superiority, really. Petting my dog right now, my dog's over here. The other one's drinking water. That's about it, really. The Japanese, they have like an event where they ask for peace, but man, once you already have a naval invasion, really, like, come on. You spent all that time planning it, really. Maybe if I was already at war with the Third International, I would have changed it. But yeah. I don't know. The rest of this is just kind of me preparing for like the Communard War. I don't want to keep on saying Communard. I guess I should say War against the Third International or something. But just setting up garrisons, all that stuff. I think most of the content for Kerensky is over by this point. Even though it's 1943, it's not really meant to be like a very popular path. It's just like a small little secret path. You know what I mean? It's just the way it is. But I enjoyed it overall. When I looked it up, people were like, it's one of the most boring paths I ever played. And it wasn't. It was just like a normal Russia path. Maybe that's when people are referring to joining the Reichspakt and stuff. And I could see how they wouldn't enjoy that path at all, really. Because sometimes it is pretty bad, you know what I mean? When it just gets boring. But, the rest of this game, I'm just kind of steamrolling, the rest of the Third International, really. They have a pretty good, like, tank setup, I think. But they're all kind of stuck down in the Balkans and stuff, so I just capitulate the French. And then the Italians. And, it's just the way it is. You see me getting ready for a naval invasion, I don't want to defeat them on the mainland and then have to wait however many days, 70 days, for the naval invasion to get prepared, That's just the way it is. Can't help it, But, the whole organization of the armies, it gets pretty chaotic at this point. There were so many separate little front lines in the Balkans. And then, I don't like it when the game does this. It causes, like, the front lines to, like, split off when you reach a neutral country, and for whatever reason it puts a lot of the divisions on the front line of a neutral country. Let me know if y'all have that problem at all down in the comments. It's really annoying, and I don't know if it's a bug or if it's on purpose. It's also like that one bug, that they've had for years, where you click on the war pop-up, the you're at war pop-up, and it just doesn't open up anything. It's really annoying, you know? So that's another bug I've noticed in the game. It's been there forever, you know? But yeah, you see me, negative 31% stability, 0% war support. You know, that's just the way it is. Hey, and there's the peace conference, you know? Pretty easy, you know? And I think in most cases I would give it back to the Entente, but I know, like, I'm not going to form a faction with them, you know? And also, I'm playing as Kerensky, you know, number one. He's basically number one at this point. You know, you can't say no to Kerensky, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Not in like a weird way or nothing. But yeah, here it is. Commonwealth of Nations controls basically all of Eurasia, all of the Middle East, you know, Egypt and stuff. I check in on the United States here, you know, the Entente. They're pretty big. They're still doing pretty well, but, you know, they're not me. Also, like, they formed from the Pacific states, but they're like an authoritarian democracy. It's pretty weird, you know. Everybody else is a social liberal because they're all my puppets. They don't have their own focus trees, but I wouldn't really expect them to. You know, sometimes when you get a puppet, it has its own focus tree. But overall, I hope y'all enjoyed this video. You know, it was pretty fun. It was pretty fun overall. You know, Kerensky's path and Kaiserredux, he gets a tough rap, but I don't think it's that bad. You know, 5 likes, you know, I'll do whatever the comments ask me to do, any sort of playthrough. I'll do actually anything they ask me to, you know. Nothing's off limits. I'm not talking about gaming, I'm talking about other stuff, you know. I'll do anything, as long as I get 5 likes on this video, you know. And I'll do the top comment, basically, you know. But yeah, there's the end. Have a great day. Bye-bye.